Hello, friends, and welcome back to Ghouls Night In, the spooky chat show with your best ghoul friends. I'm Penny Snark.
And I'm Midge Munster.
And Midge, you may know that I recently attended afternoon tea, which was
Yeah.
very lovely.
I
Um,
kind of I kind of half knew. I saw some pictures and I thought, "Damn, I
yes,
wanna go to some tea."
yes, indeed. This was, in fact, I was going to say, this very day I went to an afternoon tea, but we are recording later than anticipated, so now it's just in the near future, near
Yeah.
past, not in the future. Um, but it reminded me of a movie that has some very fabulous tea room scenes.
Oh.
Uh, I'm talking about The Love Witch.
Oh my goodness. What a great little spring episode.
Right? So that's what you are familiar, I believe.
Well, yeah, now. I just saw this for the first
Mhm.
time last year, I believe.
Oh,
Mhm.
fabulous, fabulous. So, since I often, when I am starting on a media related episode, forget to actually say what it's about until we're halfway through because I was too excited to talk about it, I will give the synopsis right up front. The Love Witch is a film about a woman named Elaine who is obsessed with love. Throughout the movie, she tries to use witchcraft to make men fall in love with her, but gosh darn it, Midge, things just always seem to go wrong for her.
Golly gee, it just doesn't seem to work.
Gosh, it's just a real unlucky time. So, The Love Witch is a horror comedy that was released in 2016, and it was written, directed, produced, scored, and edited by Anna Biller, who also did the production design, the art design, the set design, and the costume design. Um,
Yeah. This
so
film
this
said women. Yeah.
Yes. So this is a very auteur type production, a very singular kind of perspective from here. And in an interview with Anna Biller, she talks about Hitchcock, 1930s femme fatales, Hammer horror, and old musicals, all as reference points for her work. So I'm sure our listeners can understand why this would be something that a ghoul might be into.
Mhm.
So when I am trying to tell friends about this, I usually describe it as a like 60s Technicolor thriller. But as we said, it actually came out in 2016. So it is a new movie, but with a very old feel.
Yeah.
One of my favorite descriptions of it was from a review Alyssa Wilkinson wrote for Vox. She described it as a vaguely psychedelic fairy tale slash lighthearted self-aware horror story slash queasy feminist psychosexual dramedy. And I was like, hell yeah, it is all those things and more, indeed.
Trying to remember, we talked about a movie recently, and this film came up like in my mind because they
Mm,
do a similar thing. I'm sure we'll get into it when we get to like production design, but I'll see if I
mhm.
can think of it by then.
Yes, for sure. But yes, so this is a modern movie, but it's a very dedicated homage to kind of the visual aesthetic, the themes, and even the acting style of kind of these older movies. And
Mhm.
I have such a soft spot for that era. They are often goofy, very goofy, but just like delightful to watch.
Mhm.
So I'm a big fan. But if you're not familiar, let's talk a little bit more kind of about this genre that the Love Witch is in conversation with, I'll say. So the term exploitation film refers to movies that were made with the intent of making money by just like exploiting something that was going to draw like sensation and public interest. So they're usually B movies. It was made like very cheaply or quickly to try and catch in on a trend. There have been movies that people categorized this way, produced since the 1920s, but they really had their peak in like the 60s and 70s, where these were
Yeah.
really prominent, and you had a lot of kind of subsets as well. So, one subset of this genre is the sexploitation film, which generally just used a lot of gratuitous nudity and
Yeah.
like sexy situations to draw viewers. Something that I was delighted when I was researching this. So, in the late 50s, there were some Supreme Court rulings that basically lifted some of that censorship on the movie industry. So, you guys may have heard us talk on like other kind of like queer history things about like the Hays Code and
Hey,
things like
code.
that. So, there were a lot of restrictions that had been placed on the movie industry. And this was around the time where things kind of started to get lifted and started to allow more explicit content in film. Apparently, during the 50s, there was a trend of films that were set at nudist camps. Uh, because it was ruled that this was exempt from a ban on nudity in film because it was educational?
It was accurate,
Question
yeah.
mark.
Well, as
uh,
you know, people don't get naked anywhere else besides nudist
no,
camps. So
and
it was just factual.
it's
So that
just a
maybe it's fine.
factual thing. Yep. But yeah, so like under this banner, there were a lot of movies that people were like, this is a documentary. Just to like get away with nudity, even though it was perhaps not. So in the early 60s, they had what they kind of dubbed the nudie cutie films, which would have lots of like flirty, like topless scenes, but not really any like actual, like explicit, like sexual interaction on screen. They would kind of like allude to it. But as the industry progressed into the late 60s and early 70s, they instead had what they called roughies, which I would say is a way too cute name for movies that were really depicted a lot of like violence against women, kidnapping, murder, and just, but still with kind of this like racy, sexy nudity edge to it, like you do.
I could have gone my entire life without hearing the term roughies.
Right? Oh my god, when I read that, I was like, "Ooh, I don't
That's
like that."
open up that person on TikTok that, like, opens up their ick list and adds, like, a new ick? That's me
Yes.
putting roughies down.
Roughies. Very fair. So in the interview that I read with Anna Biller in The Guardian, she actually says that she's like not interested in sexploitation films and is like, oh, that's like that doesn't really have anything to do with like what I'm trying to say. But like you can't
Fascinating.
really, yeah, you can't really deny that there is a connection between these. And I kind of feel like The Love Witch takes this like roughy, violent, sexually provocative concept and then obviously flips it on its head and
Mhm.
makes it a woman at the kind of in control
The
of the
aggressor, yeah.
violence
Right.
instead of just having it occur to her.
Mhm.
So, as you may guess from the sexploitation label, there is full male and female nudity in this movie, as
I was
well
gonna
as
say, for her saying it's not sexploitation, I've never seen so many wieners.
no, so many wieners, so many boobs. They're just all right on out there. And
Yeah,
like,
which, I mean, I do if we're gonna
yes,
do nudity, make it equal.
equality, please.
Mhm. I
Yep.
don't just wanna see a man butt and you be like, "That was exactly the same as showing a full frontal woman."
Right? I remember, yeah, the first time that I watched this movie and there was, boobs and nudity, I
The
was
scene,
like,
right.
all right. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, there sure is a penis right there. Like, good for
I s
you.
I suddenly wish there was no nudity.
Oh gosh, yes. So there's a lot of focus in the movie about like love magic and sex magic, whether sex and love are inexorably intertwined. One of the things that I really loved is that apparently some of the inspiration from the character of Elaine was reading a self-help book that, talks about how the best way for women to keep a man is to love him less than he likes you. A wonderful thing to
A
think
great
about
tip, yeah.
with your partner. Um, and kind of pulling on the idea of the femme fatale trope, like a woman who is dangerous to love or, loves so hard that she destroys the men around her. And I think it's very clear even today that we get so many messages in society about like playing hard to get and like
Yeah.
basically how to trick men into liking
To
you if you
bamboozle.
are a woman. Like it is. It's like, how can I bamboozle this man until it's too late and he is stuck with me, which is just like
It's
such
the PP
a
bottom
spine
dating.
chilling way, right? To be like, ooh, don't love that.
You don't like
But
vicious trickery?
yes, trickery, the root of all love.
Mhm.
But yes, this movie is very much about being like, "Hey, I bet I could make someone love me," and being like, maybe that also wouldn't be great." Um, and it's kind of like it's a femme fatale movie, but with the femme fatale as the like viewpoint character.
Mhm.
You think about movies from this era and you could definitely see Elaine, the witchy sexually liberated woman being like the villain of the piece, and it all blows it up. But it also isn't, it's definitely not like a straightforward like witches are great and feminist kind of movie,
No.
because obviously we have a lot of conflict, this whole idea of Elaine's worldview of feminine power being dictated to her by a man.
Mhm.
There's a lot of questions raised throughout the film, I would say.
Yeah.
um, I definitely love. It's a very camp movie. So if anyone has not seen it and is considering about it, like know going in that like this is not like a super true to life like acting performance in the movie.
No, yeah.
Everything is very heightened and very campy, and
It's very,
kind of.
like, giallo too, like, kind
Yes,
of just, like,
exactly, very
yeah, over the
much, yes.
top. Yeah, it's something.
Yes, and so the thing that I most wanna talk about, is the styling, of
Yeah.
course. Just unbeatable, an absolute stunning fantasy. The sometimes, like, I just think of, like, some films are like a painting, like, every single frame, you're like, "I just wanna look at this forever."
Mhm.
And it took 7.5 years to make The Love Witch, and you can definitely tell that there was just an immense amount of care kind of put into every frame put together in the film. And that starts from the very beginning because this movie was shot on 35 millimeter film, which is
Mhm.
not a thing many people do anymore. And apparently, this like is part of why it took so long. Is there's just not a lot of like the physical ability to make movies on film in
Sure.
Hollywood anymore. Like being
Sure, yeah.
able to like hire people who can edit on film and things like that took an extra long time. The major collaborator on this film, as we kind of said before, Anna did a lot of it entirely herself, but M. David Mullen was the cinematographer, specializes in period cinematography, and you really see how like all of the lighting in this movie, I feel like especially like feels so incredibly true to like that 60s vibe.
Yes.
And he's worked on a lot of movies, including another favorite of Miss Midge's.
Uh-oh.
It's Jennifer's Body.
Whoop, whoop.
What up?
Another great female rage piece.
Exactly. It also, one of my favorite parts, it features the Bear House, this Queen Anne Victorian. If you are a
Mhm.
person who gets served pictures of goth Victorian houses online, which if you are listening to this podcast, this seems likely,
You
you have
probably
seen
do,
this.
right?
You have seen this house. Absolutely gorgeous. The colors of the inside were all drawn. I do not actually know how to say this. Is it the Thoth tarot deck? I am not a tarot deck expert, so that is my guess. It's Thoth.
Oh.
Yeah, so like so she used this tarot deck as kind of like the color story for Elaine's place, and Anna Biller, the director, did all of the paintings, and she also made the pentagram rug that we see in
I have to
Elaine's
give
home.
a shout out here. Um,
Yes,
my hair art friend Anne remade that rug from scratch,
I saw it on her
and I've
Instagram.
never been more impressed with any person in my entire life.
It's insane. It's
It
so
was
cool.
it was so crazy. And she she didn't do the thing, the gun thing. Like she hand
Oh, she
tied
hand
it.
let. Oh my god.
And I said something about I was like, "Oh my god, that's so impressive." And she was like, "I actually have an illness where I am physically unable to do a project that takes me less than 300 hours."
I respect that. I respect that very much, but it could not be me. I am always
Oh,
like, "What
no,
is the
no.
quickest way that I can do this?" And then
Right,
I'm
right.
like, why does this look kinda crappy?" It's because I did it as quickly as I possibly could. So, there you go. Um, there's a lot of vintage furniture and costumes in the movie, and she also took some vintage clothes and then remade them, in fabrics that would kind of match the vibe. And this, like, very glamorous, colorful vibe is, in contrast with obviously kind of the bizarre and violent happenings of the film, and it really makes you feel like you are living in, like, Elaine's fantasy.
Yeah, and that's so this is what I was thinking about. I'm glad
Mhm.
we're coming back to the beginning here.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, which again, I've only seen this film one time, and then I, like, did the thing where I read a bunch of stuff about it
Yes.
afterward. Um, but it was the Pushing Daisies episode, that this came up, where we are talking about, like, how the fantasy element is pushed because, like, the cars and everything are not from, like, your
Mhm. Yeah.
present day, but everything's from, like, different time periods.
Yes.
So if I'm not mistaken, I read something about how, like, Elaine's things and cars are, like, and stuff is, like, from the '60s, but then if you look at, like, wide shots, it's, like, juxtaposed, like, other things are not. So it's almost like you're looking into her point of view. Does that make sense?
Yes, no,
Like,
totally, yeah, it
yeah,
does,
like,
it
they
feels like you're seeing it through her eyes, and that's,
right,
like,
like, they've
maybe
basically kind of made her disjointed from reality in that way, that, like, her stuff is so juxtaposed to what's happening kind of elsewhere.
yeah, and it does feel weird because it feels so much like you are in a period piece, and then, like, someone will, like, pull out a cell phone, and you're like, "Wait, what?" Like,
Yeah. Well, and
what's
specifically,
happening?"
someone was they were in this article, they were talking about this, they're talking about the the house, there it's the wide shot outside where
Mhm.
her car is parked in front of that Victorian house, but then, like, right behind her, there's, like, a modern car.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, it's very, like, she's living the Delulu. Like,
She
she
truly is, she truly
yeah,
is, which, I mean,
which,
I
like, same
respect
bestie,
it.
yeah.
I wish that was my life too. Uh, this is so cool. I just want do you have, like, does any, like, outfit or, like, style element come to mind? The thing that
Well, I
I have
mean
been super obsessed with is the giant necklet like, teardrop necklace that
oh,
she
yep.
wears. I was like,
Mhm.
"Ooh, I want one of those." They're fucking, like, $400.
Yeah, mhm. I mean, it's also just like Gunny Sacks Junction, like
Yes.
every single fat girl in the world can just sit and weep at this movie that you'll never
Oh.
own any of these dresses because it's all like vintage Gunny Sacks. They're so beautiful. Um yeah, I mean, I think obviously like the iconic tea room scene with her pink hat and her dress.
Yes.
But yeah, I have to now confess something. This
Yes.
is a film that was very hyped up to me for a very long time by every person I've ever met. And my beautiful friend Melissa, who owns the shop Retro Vixen in Kansas City, she looks like Elaine. She did this
Mhm.
beautiful photo shoot that was an homage. It was perfect. And so, like, I had just had all this, like, media adjacent to Love Witch fed to me for years. And I was like, wow, this must be the best film ever made. And I did that stupid thing where I saved it for a rainy day. I was like, this is gonna be
Mhm.
something I watch at some point. And then I watched it, and Penny, I was a little underwhelmed.
Aw.
Now, again, I saw it one time. It's probably been a year or 2 ago at this point. I should watch it again. But I think I don't know, there were definitely elements of it that I loved. Visually, it's stunning, but I felt like maybe I don't know if it went over my head a little bit. I was like, "Oh, I wasn't prepared to think." Like, I I thought I was gonna watch something, like, campy and ridiculous.
No, yeah, that is fair. I will say that literally the next thing in my notes was that it's a movie that I find more compelling the more I watch it. Like,
Sure.
I definitely like, like the first time that I watched it, I was kind of like, "Oh, I don't know if I liked this." Like
That's how I felt. I was like,
I was,
"Huh."
yep, I was like, "Oh, well, I really liked this part and I like definitely love the aesthetic." And then I just kind of found myself like still thinking about it and being
Yeah.
like, "Huh." And then I was like, "Maybe I'll watch it again." And I watched it again and I was like, "Hmm, I think maybe I do like this." And now I have like shown it to like 3 different people for the first time. So, I will say if you are unsure, maybe give it another shot. I
So
feel
this
like
is my
kind of
official invitation to rewatch this movie.
yes, yes, your invitation and the invitation to anyone out there who is listening to this and was like, "I watched that and I don't know if I liked it." Try it. Try it again.
Yeah.
It is often and is now available on like a Tubi, like one of the like free streaming with ad
Mhm.
places. So if you want to check it out, you should, because it is a very strange movie and like the pacing of it is very like it's a very film kind of movie
Yeah,
if
yeah.
that
I
makes
remember
sense.
thinking, like, a scene I both loved and simultaneously hated, is, like, the Renaissance
Yes.
scene, because I was like, "Oh, this is hilarious because it's, like, so 70s." Like, it's so late 60s, early 70s that, like, medieval resurgence was happening and,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
um and I loved the aesthetic of it, and it was shot really beautifully, but it was right about that point where I was like, "The movie is over!" And then it kept going for
Going.
another, like, 35 minutes, and I was like, "Oh,
Oh.
this this could have been it. I would have been okay." Um,
It's true, that's fair. It is
Pacing, for sure.
y
It was a
y
thing I was kinda like, "Ugh."
yeah, and that's kind of like I feel like I need to warn the people, both when I have watched this with people and when I'm telling you all now about it, is that it is a very strange movie. Like, it is not like a sit down, this is a regular degular kind of film. It is
And I
definitely
think maybe
very
that
artsy.
was part of my problem. I think I went in because I think I watched it with Rain. I think like my best friend
Mhm.
and I sat down to like have a girls movie night. And I thought we were gonna have like a fun little like, ooh, a lady
Yeah.
murders men moment. Like Jennifer's body. Like I was
Yeah,
ready for
yeah.
Jennifer's body. And then I was like, oh, this is a dissertation.
Yes.
I felt like I should have been taking notes. And I'm 40 minutes in and I haven't taken any notes and now I don't know what's happening. So yeah, I'll give it another go.
Yeah. Give it a whirl, and, like, I will say I personally find some scenes they're definitely doing the thing where they're like, "We're gonna make this go super long," and you'll be like, "Oh, I'm kinda tired of this," but, "Oh, wait, it's come around again."
I'm tired of this,
And sometimes
grandma.
I'm tired of this, grandma, and sometimes I'm like, "We coulda gone a little bit. We coulda clipped some of this for my taste." I'm not a
Yeah,
filmmaker, but I was like, the Renaissance scene is a little long for my preference. I
truly.
see how it does definitely feel like it's the end of the movie, which I think probably is purposeful that like this is Elaine being like, "This is my grand finale, romantic finale," and then it's
Right.
like, "Wait, no, it's
Ha
not.
ha
Sorry,
ha.
girl."
Yeah. Sp- Spoilers. Not the end.
Spoilers. I mean, we've said it's a dark film, so
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
there is not
No happy
a
endings.
beautiful happy ending. Uh, but yeah, it's a weird little movie, and every so often, like I'm like, oh, I'm getting tea, or oh, I'm doing this, and I'm like, maybe I should watch The Love Witch.
Yeah. I will say that post watching it, I did have a very like urgent moment of like, I need to have a witchy tea party with my
Right.
friends right now or I'll die.
I feel like anytime that I wear like really like pastel eyeshadow,
Oh yeah.
I mean, obviously it
The
is a
makeup.
60s look, but I think about the cover with Elaine with her beautiful blue eyeshadow, and I'm like,
Yeah, her
"Ah,
makeup's
yes."
a slay and a serve.
Such a slay. And that's part of the thing too, because I feel like the reason that I came back to it was I was like, well, it was so pretty. So like if I just look at it,
At minimum, I'm
that's
gonna look at it
fine.
and enjoy
I'll
it,
look at
yeah.
it and I'll like it. And then I was like, actually, I'm getting increasingly invested in this film the more that I watch it. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that with all of our listeners who may maybe have seen it and like it, or maybe you don't like it, and that's fine. That is often what film festival type movies are like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I I had a it's honestly the I was thinking about this film after I saw Late Night with the Devil, because I think a lot of people are gonna have
Oh.
a similar
Mm,
reaction to that film where it's kind of like it's like a thing where I wish I had been prepped what I was seeing before I went in, which normally I
yeah.
like to watch a film blind, but both with Love Witch and Late Night with the Devil, while I really enjoyed Late Night with the Devil, I went in thinking I was getting like spooky, scary skeletons. Like I was ready to
Yeah.
get my shit rocked, and instead I got like a heady think piece. And I was like, oh, I mean, it was
Oh.
great, but I was kind of like, that was not what I thought was going to happen at all.
I know.
Um,
You really sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to know many things, but just tell me if I'm gonna have to
Give me
think
the
about
vibe.
this
Yeah, let me
movie.
let me know the vibe before I commit, for sure.
Just so I know that I'm matching the film vibe with my life vibe. It's
Yes.
like I like all of these things, but it needs to be at the right time.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, it actually so I watched the trailer for this all the way back in 2016 because it actually showed at the Milwaukee Film Festival,
Oh,
that year
cool.
while it was making the festival circuit, and I didn't end up, like, being able to go see it for like, the timing didn't work out, but I kept thinking about it, and then when I randomly saw it on some streaming site, I like, a year or 2 later, I was like, "Oh, shoot, I always wanted to see that," and I watched it, and here we are
And
today.
here we are.
And
Well,
that's
I
the
do feel
story.
like spring summer is a great time to watch this film. So
Yes,
if you're exploring it for the first time, or you're like me and you need to go back and try it again, now's a really good time to get into it.
it definitely is. Right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today as we discuss The Love Witch. If you want to follow along with us, you can find us on Instagram at Ghouls Night In Pod. And if you liked the show, we would love for you to leave a review wherever you can. Obviously, we love hearing from you. And Mitch has a review from Apple Podcasts to share with us today.
I do. This one is from The Vampire's Wife, which
Mm.
isn't that the name of like a really bougie clothing brand that is beautiful?
Ooh, it might
Am I
be.
making that up? There's like I think like Casey Musgraves and Lana Del Rey have all worn these like beautiful
Oh,
gowns that I think are from a brand called The Vampire's Wife. I'm assuming that is
fabulous.
not this person, but great name choice. Uh, but this is titled Ghoul Icons, bat emoji, coffin emoji. And it says, Penny and Midge, you two are lovely, funny, smart, quirky, spooky, and everything you could ever dream in a ghoul friendship. I was late to the Ghouls Night In gang, but so glad that I'm a part of it now. This podcast has been my whole life over a month. Sadly,
Oh,
I'm all caught up. You listen to 130 episodes in a month?
whew,
You are so dedicated. I'm
damn.
so wow. Yeah, over a month. Sadly, I'm all caught up, but I've started listening again from episode 1 because I'm hooked. Thank you for the laughs, the information I never knew I needed or wanted, and the good times. I've spent many nights listening to you guys and laughing out loud in bed, having the best time ever. Special shout out to the Monster Cereal episode that had me in tears laughing. I feel so seen when I listen to you ghouls, and that is a rare feeling. I think a Phantom of the Opera episode would be lit if you need ideas.
Mm.
Anyway, thank you for providing a spooky, cozy, fun space for goth weirdos like me. Well, that was so sweet.
Oh,
I love
thank
that.
you so
Also,
much.
I love I've been kind of toying with the idea of starting kind of an anthology series of just going through all the monsters. um
Ooh,
and Phantom is technically like the OG
he is.
monster movie, so maybe we need to get that going.
I definitely thought that you were this if you guys want to know something about me, I definitely thought Midge was going to be like, I was thinking about doing a series of monsters that I thought were really sexy, and I was like, yeah, Phantom of the Opera, hell yeah, let's do it.
You know, you didn't have to out me in a public forum, but I'm so thankful that you did. Yeah, no, but I was just talking to someone like a couple of days ago, I think at a birthday party, that we were talking about how we were like phantom girlies in high school.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So I would love to do a phantom episode. I'll get on that.
Oh,
Vampire
yeah,
wife.
for sure. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for listening. Once again, if you want to find us on Instagram, we are at Ghouls Night In Pod. And if you are looking for me, you can find me at Penny Snark.
And you can find me all over the web at Midge Munster.
And until next time,
Goodbye.
goodbye.